Imagine it's November 1st, you've just finished Halloween candy, and suddenly everywhere you look, Christmas. Store displays transform overnight. Advertisements flood your screen. Your inbox explodes with holiday sales. Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas starts its annual assault on your eardrums. You think this is about holiday spirit? Think again. What you're witnessing is the activation of a multi-trillion-dollar economic machine, a carefully orchestrated system that spans continents, employs millions, moves billions of tons of cargo across oceans, and generates more economic activity in 8 weeks than most countries produce in an entire year. This isn't about Santa Claus. This is about the Santa Claus, the unwritten contract between consumers, corporations, and governments that transforms a religious holiday into the single most important economic event on the planet. Right now, as you watch this, container ships are leaving Chinese ports loaded with toys destined for American shelves. Warehouses across Europe are being stocked to capacity. Seasonal workers are being hired by the hundreds of thousands. Credit card companies are preparing for their most profitable quarter. All of this driven by a myth. Not the myth of a man in a red suit, but the myth that Christmas requires consumption, that love is measured in purchases, that tradition demands spending. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the greatest economic illusion of our time. We're revealing how a holiday celebrating peace and goodwill became the linchpin of global capitalism. How Christmas consumerism doesn't just influence markets, it is the market. Welcome to the real story of Christmas, where every jingle bell rings up profits, and every snowflake is actually a dollar sign. Let's follow the money. Christmas wasn't always like this. For most of Christian history, Christmas was a religious observance, not a shopping obligation. In medieval Europe, Christmas meant church services, simple feasts, and perhaps small tokens exchanged among the wealthy. The average person didn't exchange gifts. They couldn't afford to. Even in early America, Christmas was barely celebrated. The Puritans actually banned it. They considered it too Catholic, too festive, too worldly. For most of the 1600s and 1700s, December 25th was a normal working day. So what changed? The Industrial Revolution changed everything. Suddenly, factories could mass-produce goods. Department stores emerged, needing to move inventory. Advertising became sophisticated, and businesses realized something profound. If they could tie purchasing to emotion, to obligation, to tradition, they could create predictable, massive demand. The modern Christmas we know was deliberately constructed in the mid-1800s. Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol in 1843 wasn't just literature, it was marketing. It created the template. Christmas as a time of generosity, family gathering, and yes, gift-giving. Department stores seized this immediately. Macy's created elaborate Christmas window displays in the 1870s. They weren't selling products. They were selling an experience, a feeling, a vision of what Christmas should be. Then came the masterstroke, Santa Claus. St. Nicholas existed, of course, a 4th century bishop known for generosity. But the modern Santa red suit, sleigh, reindeer, North Pole workshop was largely created by advertisers. The red and white suit popularized by Coca-Cola ads in the 1930s. The reindeer, a marketing poem from 1823, Rudolph, created by Montgomery Ward department store in 1939 as a promotional giveaway. Every element of modern Christmas mythology was crafted, refined, and deployed to achieve one goal: make people buy, and it worked spectacularly. Modern Christmas marketing is a masterclass in psychological manipulation, not in a sinister sense, but in understanding what drives human behavior. First, nostalgia. Christmas ads don't sell products, they sell memories. The warmth of childhood, family togetherness, simpler times. They trigger emotional associations built over decades. When you see a Christmas commercial, you're not thinking about the product. You're thinking about your grandmother's cookies, your children's faces on Christmas morning, the magic you felt as a kid. That emotional state makes you vulnerable to purchasing. Second, obligation. Christmas isn't positioned as optional. It's a social requirement. Not buying gifts. You're Scrooge, you're the Grinch. You're letting down your family, your friends, your children. This obligation is reinforced everywhere. Media, social pressure, workplace secret Santa exchanges, school gift requirements. The entire culture tells you you must participate, and participation means spending. Third, urgency and scarcity. Holiday shopping has built-in deadlines. Retailers create artificial scarcity with limited edition items, doorbusters and inventory countdowns. Only 3 left in stock. Sale ends tonight. Order now for Christmas delivery. These tactics bypass rational thinking. They create panic purchasing, fear of missing out, fear of disappointing loved ones, fear of being the only one who didn't get the perfect gift. Fourth, the social comparison trap. Social media amplifies this. Everyone posts their decorated homes, their wrapped presents, their family celebrations. You see what others are buying, displaying, experiencing, and you feel pressure to match or exceed it. The result: Americans alone spend over $900 billion during the holiday season. That's not counting the rest of the world. Total global Christmas spending easily exceeds $2 trillion annually. Let that sink in. $2 trillion. That's larger than the entire economy of Canada or Italy. All of this economic activity compressed into roughly 8 weeks. This isn't accidental. This is engineered. Here's what makes this system brilliant. It's self-perpetuating. Parents buy gifts for their children, creating magical Christmas memories. Those children grow up associating Christmas with gifts and spending. They become parents and repeat the cycle. Each generation reinforces the behavior in the next. Businesses depend on this. Roughly 20 to 30% of annual retail sales happen in November and December. For some retailers, Christmas sales determine whether they're profitable for the entire year. This creates a feedback loop. Retailers need holiday sales to survive, so they advertise heavily, creating cultural pressure to spend. Consumers respond by spending, validating the strategy. Retailers double down next year. The cycle intensifies. And it's not just retail. The entire economy revolves around this. Banks extend credit. Shipping companies scale operations, manufacturers time production, governments anticipate tax revenues, employment patterns shift, stock markets react. Christmas consumerism isn't just part of the economy. For 2 months each year, it is the economy. But where does all this merchandise come from? How does the global machine actually function? Let's follow a product from factory to tree. You're thinking about Christmas in December. Retailers are thinking about it in January, but manufacturers, they start in summer, July. Factories in Guangdong, China are already producing Christmas 2025 inventory. Toys, electronics, decorations, clothing. Millions of units being manufactured 6 months before they'll reach store shelves. Why so early? Because the global supply chain is a complex, fragile system that requires enormous lead time. Consider a simple toy. It requires plastic components, electronic parts, packaging materials, instruction manuals. These might come from different factories in different provinces. They must be assembled, quality checked, boxed, and prepared for shipping. Then comes the logistics nightmare. Container ships don't run on demand. They operate on fixed schedules. Missing a sailing means waiting weeks for the next one. For Christmas inventory, that's catastrophic. So manufacturers work backward from retail deadlines, adding buffer time for every possible delay. A product leaving a Chinese factory in August might reach a US warehouse in October, giving retailers November to distribute to stores for December sales. This system works beautifully until it doesn't. The global shipping network has limited capacity, and Christmas pushes it to the absolute limit. The numbers are staggering. During peak season, over 20,000 additional containers per day move through major Pacific ports compared to off-peak times. That's millions of tons of cargo, all converging on the same ports at the same time. Port of Los Angeles, Port of Long Beach, Rotterdam, Hamburg, Singapore. These become pressure points where the entire system can seize up. Remember 2021, supply chain chaos. Dozens of ships anchored offshore, waiting weeks to unload. Ports overwhelmed, trucking shortages, warehouse bottlenecks, empty store shelves. What caused it? A perfect storm. Yes, but the underlying issue is structural. The Christmas demand surge creates a system operating at 110% capacity. Any disruption cascades. One delayed ship affects the next ship's berth availability. Port delays create trucking backups. Trucking delays cause warehouse congestion. Warehouse congestion forces retailers to divert shipments to secondary facilities. Each delay compounds the next, and the costs astronomical. Shipping a container from China to the US normally costs around $2,000 to $3,000. During the 2021 crisis, over $20,000. 10 times normal rates. Who pays? Ultimately, consumers. But retailers absorb some of it, squeezing margins. Manufacturers eat some, reducing profitability. The entire system becomes less efficient. This isn't sustainable. Yet every year we replay the same scenario. Because Christmas isn't negotiable. The deadline is absolute. Products must arrive, so companies throw money at the problem. Behind every container, every warehouse, every delivery, there are people. And Christmas demand creates enormous pressure on workers worldwide. In Chinese factories, workers put in brutal overtime during peak production. 12 14-hour days, 6 or 7 days a week. The products flooding Western markets for Christmas are often made by people who will never experience the holiday themselves. Labor rights organizations document the surge in violations during holiday production seasons. Safety shortcuts, forced overtime, wage theft. The pressure to meet deadlines overrides worker protections. Then consider warehouse workers. Amazon alone hires over 150,000 seasonal workers for the holidays. These jobs are grueling. Constant movement, strict productivity quotas, physical strain. Injury rates spike during holiday season. Delivery drivers face similar pressure. UPS, FedEx, Amazon delivery drivers work extended hours during peak season. The promise of 2-day or next-day delivery during Christmas means drivers are pushed to their limits. This is the hidden cost of Christmas convenience. The free shipping and fast delivery come at the expense of human well-being across the supply chain. And here's the cruel irony. Many of these seasonal workers can't afford the products they are removing. The warehouse worker packing toys may not be able to buy similar gifts for their own children. The factory worker assembling electronics will never own what they make. Christmas consumerism creates a two-tiered system, those who consume and those who enable consumption. The celebration of generosity built on the exploitation of labor. There's another cost rarely discussed: environmental impact. Moving billions of products around the world requires enormous energy. Container ships burn heavy fuel oil, one of the dirtiest fuels available. The carbon emissions from holiday shipping alone are staggering. Then there's packaging: cardboard, plastic, styrofoam, bubble wrap. Americans generate 25% more trash during the holidays than any other time of year. That's an additional 1 million tons per week of garbage. Much of it isn't recyclable. Complex packaging with mixed materials. Plastic toys that will break and end up in landfills. Electronics with short lifespans destined to become toxic waste. And the products themselves, increasingly disposable. Fast fashion Christmas sweaters worn once. Trendy toys forgotten by January. Decorations that won't survive storage. We're buying things designed to be replaced next year. The environmental cost of Christmas consumerism is catastrophic, yet it's barely discussed because acknowledging it means questioning the entire system. But retailers can't worry about long-term environmental costs. They're focused on short-term survival, and that means winning the most brutal competition of the year, Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. Supposedly the biggest shopping day of the year, when retailers go from in the red losing money to in the black profitable. Except that's mostly myth now. The name actually came from Philadelphia police describing the chaotic post-Thanksgiving crowds in the 1960s. Retailers later rebranded it as the profitability story. But here's what's real: Black Friday has metastasized. It's no longer one day, it's an entire season. It starts in early November now. Black Friday preview sales, early Black Friday access. Some retailers begin in October. Cyber Monday extends the weekend, and Cyber Week. Then holiday savings right through Christmas. Why? Because retailers learned that concentrating demand into one day creates operational nightmares. Better to spread it out, extend the buying window, capture more total spending. The result: Christmas shopping season now spans nearly 3 months. From early November through early January. That's 1/4 of the year dominated by holiday marketing and sales. For retailers, this is existential. Many businesses generate 30 to 40% of their annual revenue during this period. A bad holiday season can doom a company. A strong one can carry them through a weak year. This creates enormous pressure. Get inventory right, price competitively, market aggressively, execute flawlessly. There's no room for error. Retail inventory management during the holidays is one of the most complex optimization problems in business. Order too much, and you're stuck with unsold merchandise that must be deeply discounted or written off. Order too little, and you miss sales, disappoint customers, lose market share. Multiply this across thousands of products, hundreds of stores, constantly shifting demand patterns, and you have a nightmare scenario. Retailers use sophisticated algorithms, historical data, trend analysis, and real-time sales tracking, but it's still fundamentally a guessing game. Consider toy retailers. A viral TikTok video can create instant demand for a product. Suddenly everyone wants the same toy. Retailers who stocked it make a fortune. Those who didn't lose sales and customer goodwill. Or consider whether an unusually warm December reduces demand for winter clothing, leaving retailers with excess inventory. An early cold snap creates demand they can't meet. Fashion trends shift unpredictably. Hot gift items emerge from nowhere. Consumer preferences are increasingly volatile, and the stakes are massive. A major retailer might carry $100 million worth of holiday inventory. Getting it wrong means tens of millions in losses. This is why retailers increasingly rely on data analytics and artificial intelligence. Machine learning models predict demand, optimize pricing, and manage inventory in real time. But AI can't predict everything. Black swan events happen: pandemics, economic crashes, viral trends, supply chain disruptions. When the unpredictable occurs, even the best models fail. 20 years ago, Christmas shopping meant crowded malls, long checkout lines, and physical inventory constraints. Now most Christmas shopping happens online. E-commerce has fundamentally reshaped holiday retail. You can browse thousands of products in minutes, compare prices instantly, order from your couch, never interact with another human. This convenience has accelerated Christmas shopping in ways physical retail never could, but it creates new problems. The last mile problem specifically. Getting a product from China to a US warehouse is relatively efficient. Getting it from that warehouse to your specific doorstep, incredibly difficult and expensive during the holidays. Delivery companies are overwhelmed. They can't hire enough drivers. They can't expand capacity fast enough. Delivery times slip, packages get lost, customers get angry. Amazon has addressed this by building its own delivery network, but even they struggle during peak season. 2-day prime shipping becomes 3-day or 4-day. Free shipping thresholds increase. Some items become unavailable for fast delivery. The promise of e-commerce instant gratification, unlimited selection, perfect convenience breaks down exactly when it matters most, during the holidays. This creates competitive pressure. Retailers that can't fulfill orders lose customers. Those with better logistics win. Christmas becomes a logistics competition as much as a merchandising one. Not all retailers benefit equally from Christmas. Big box stores and e-commerce giants capture most of the spending. They have the scale, the inventory, the logistics, the marketing budgets. Small retailers struggle to compete. Local businesses can't match Amazon's selection or Walmart's prices. They can't afford Super Bowl ad slots or celebrity endorsements. They're fighting with one hand tied behind their backs. Some carve out niches, boutique gifts, local products, personalized service, experiences rather than pure merchandise. But it's a tough fight. The result: Christmas consumerism accelerates retail consolidation. Big companies get bigger, small businesses disappear, downtowns hollow out while fulfillment centers expand. This has profound economic implications. Retail jobs at small businesses are replaced by warehouse jobs for large corporations. Economic diversity decreases. Communities become dependent on a handful of Christmas shopping, ironically, is killing the Main Street Christmas of Norman Rockwell paintings and Hallmark movies. The idyllic small-town holiday is being replaced by Amazon boxes on porches. But individual businesses aren't the only ones paying attention to Christmas spending. Entire governments are watching, because Christmas consumerism directly impacts national economies. Every finance minister, every central banker, every economic analyst watches the fourth quarter obsessively. Because Christmas retail sales are a massive component of GDP in the United States. Holiday retail sales typically exceed $900 billion. That's roughly 4% of the entire US GDP compressed into 8 weeks. For comparison, the entire US agricultural sector generates about $1.1 trillion annually. Christmas shopping alone is nearly as economically significant as all farming in America. Other countries show similar patterns. The UK, Canada, Germany, France, Australia all see massive fourth quarter retail spikes driven by Christmas. This creates predictable patterns. GDP growth accelerates in Q4, employment rises, consumer confidence measures become critical, retail sales data moves markets, central banks adjust policy around this, interest rate decisions account for holiday spending, inflation calculations factor in seasonal price changes, economic forecasts hinge on Christmas retail performance. A strong Christmas season can mask underlying economic weakness. A weak one can expose problems that might otherwise be hidden. Christmas is an economic thermometer for the entire year. Governments love Christmas, not for sentimental reasons. For revenue, every purchase generates sales tax. Holiday spending creates a massive windfall for state and local governments. Some jurisdictions generate 20 to 30% of their annual sales tax revenue during the holiday season. Income taxes benefit to retail, employment surges. Overtime increases, bonuses get paid. All of this creates taxable income that flows into government coffers in early spring. Corporate taxes follow. Retailers that profit during the holidays pay more taxes. Their suppliers profit and pay taxes. Shipping companies profit and pay taxes. The cascade effect generates substantial government revenue. For many governments, Christmas is effectively a second tax season. Budget planning accounts for the holiday boost. Programs get funded based on expected Christmas revenues. This creates a perverse incentive. Governments benefit from increased consumption, so they're unlikely to discourage it. Tax policy often encourages holiday spending through sales tax holidays or deductibility of certain expenses. The government, in effect, becomes dependent on Christmas consumerism. Just like retailers, just like manufacturers, the entire system is addicted, but what goes up must come down. January is brutal. Consumer spending craters. People are tapped out financially and emotionally. They're paying off credit card debt from December. They're experiencing buyer's remorse. They're exhausted. Retail traffic plummets. Returns flood back into stores. Hiring freezes. Seasonal workers get laid off. Economic activity slows dramatically. This creates a predictable Q1 slump. GDP growth moderates, consumer confidence dips. Retail stocks often decline. For individuals, the hangover is financial. Credit card debt in America spikes by over $100 billion during the holidays. People spend money they don't have, financing purchases at high interest rates. The average American household carries about $1,000 in additional debt after Christmas. For many, it takes months to pay off. Some never fully recover before the next holiday season begins. This debt cycle is profitable for financial institutions but destructive for household finances. It's another hidden cost of Christmas consumerism, the celebration of generosity financed by debt. Christmas consumerism also reveals stark global inequalities. Wealthy nations consume, poor nations produce. The pattern is clear and consistent. Chinese factory workers making $2 per hour produce goods purchased by American consumers making $25 per hour. The value accrues to the consumer nations. The labor burden falls on the producer nations. This isn't unique to Christmas, but the holiday amplifies it. The surge in demand creates surge in exploitation. The urgency of deadlines overrides concerns about working conditions. International trade during the holidays also benefits wealthy nations disproportionately. The logistics networks, the port infrastructure, the distribution systems, all favor developed economies. Developing nations participate in Christmas consumerism primarily as producers, not consumers. They fuel the system but barely benefit from it. There are exceptions, of course. Growing middle classes in China, India, and other emerging economies are increasingly participating in Christmas shopping, even if they're not Christian. The holiday is being exported globally as a commercial event divorced from religious meaning, but the inequality remains. Christmas is fundamentally a wealth-driven phenomenon. The more money a nation has, the more it consumes during the holidays. So where is this heading? Can this system sustain itself indefinitely, or are we approaching a breaking point? Something is shifting, slowly but unmistakably. Younger consumers especially are questioning the environmental cost of Christmas consumption. They see the waste, they understand the carbon footprint. They're asking, is this sustainable? The answer is clearly no. Current consumption patterns are environmentally catastrophic. We cannot continue extracting resources, manufacturing disposable goods, shipping them globally, and discarding them annually without severe consequences. Climate change makes this urgent. Every Christmas season's emissions contribute to long-term environmental damage. The packaging waste alone is staggering. The disposable nature of many gifts creates mountains of garbage. But here's the paradox. People still want to celebrate. They want to give gifts. They want traditions. They don't want to give up Christmas. So we're seeing emergence of sustainable Christmas movements. Buying less but better. Choosing experiences over things. Opting for handmade or locally produced gifts. Reducing packaging. Reusing decorations. Some retailers are responding. Sustainability messaging in holiday marketing. Recyclable packaging, carbon-neutral shipping options, donation programs instead of physical gifts. But let's be honest, this remains niche. The vast majority of Christmas spending is still traditional consumerism, buying new products, wrapping them in new paper, shipping them in new boxes. The tension is real. Consumers want to feel good about their choices, but they're not willing to radically change behavior. So we get sustainability theater. Small gestures that make people feel better without fundamentally changing the system. True sustainability would require massive reduction in consumption. Fewer gifts, simpler celebrations, local focus, but that would devastate the economic engine we've built around Christmas. Governments won't encourage it, they need the tax revenue. Retailers won't promote it, they need the sales. Media won't champion it, they need the advertising dollars. So we're stuck in the paradox, acknowledging the problem while perpetuating it. But there is genuine change happening, a shift toward experiential gifts rather than material ones. Concert tickets instead of jewelry. Travel experiences instead of electronics, cooking classes instead of kitchen gadgets, donations to causes instead of physical presents. This trend is growing, particularly among millennials and Gen Z. They value experiences, memories, and personal growth over accumulation of stuff. For some, this is environmental consciousness. For others, it's minimalism. For many, it's simply recognizing that more stuff doesn't increase happiness. This shift terrifies traditional retailers. You can't stock experiences. You can't inventory memories. The economics are completely different, but it creates opportunities for new businesses, experience platforms, travel companies, entertainment venues, education providers. Service-based businesses benefit while product-based businesses struggle. We're also seeing growth in conscious consumerism, ethical sourcing, fair trade, supporting small businesses, buying from companies with strong environmental and social records. Again, this is still relatively small. Most people still prioritize price and convenience over ethics, but the trend is real and growing. The question is scale and speed. Will these shifts happen fast enough to matter, or will they remain niche preferences among relatively wealthy consumers who can afford to care? Another major shift: the digitization of gifts, digital gift cards, online subscriptions, virtual experiences, NFTs, and digital collectibles, cryptocurrency gifts. The pandemic accelerated this dramatically. When physical shopping became difficult, digital alternatives exploded. This has profound implications for the Christmas economy. Digital products don't require manufacturing, shipping, or physical retail space. The entire supply chain collapses into data transmission. This is more efficient, but also more abstract. A digital gift lacks the tangible presence of a physical one. The unwrapping experience disappears. The visual impact is reduced. Yet for certain demographics, especially younger ones, digital is increasingly normal. They don't see it as lesser, it's just different. Gaming companies have capitalized on this. In-game purchases, special skins, virtual items. For gamers, these are meaningful gifts, even though they're purely digital. Streaming subscriptions have become standard gifts. Netflix, Spotify, Disney, various gaming services, monthly subscriptions that extend throughout the year. This shift toward digital and subscription-based gifting changes the economics fundamentally. It spreads revenue throughout the year rather than concentrating it in Q4. It reduces dependence on physical logistics. It creates recurring revenue rather than one-time sales. Retailers and manufacturers are scrambling to adapt. Traditional toy companies are buying gaming studios. Physical retailers are acquiring digital platforms. Everyone is trying to participate in this transition. So what happens next? Where is Christmas consumerism heading? Several scenarios are possible. Scenario 1. Continuation. The system persists largely unchanged. Economic and cultural momentum are too strong to overcome. We continue the annual cycle of production, consumption, and waste with minor modifications for sustainability theater. Scenario 2. Moderation. Gradual shift toward less consumption but more meaningful gifts. The experience economy grows. Sustainability becomes more than marketing. Christmas remains economically important but less dominant. Scenario 3. Disruption. A major shock, economic crash, environmental crisis, or cultural revolution forces fundamental change. Christmas traditions adapt rapidly to new realities. The economic engine restructures or collapses. Scenario 4. Divergence. Wealthy consumers continue traditional consumption. Middle and lower income consumers shift toward cheaper alternatives or opt out entirely. Christmas becomes increasingly stratified by economic class. Which scenario is most likely? Probably a combination. Some elements of each playing out differently across regions and demographics. But one thing is certain: the current trajectory is unsustainable. Environmental costs, labor exploitation, debt burdens, waste generation, these cannot continue indefinitely at increasing scale. Something will give. The question is what, when, and how painful the adjustment will be. We started with a simple question: what is the Santa Claus myth really about? The answer: it's about the most sophisticated economic engine humanity has ever created. A system that generates trillions in economic activity, employs millions, spans continents, and touches every aspect of modern life. It's about how we transformed a religious holiday into a commercial imperative, how we turned generosity into obligation, how we made celebration synonymous with consumption. It's about factories in Asia, ships crossing oceans, warehouses operating at capacity, retail workers pushed to exhaustion, delivery drivers racing against deadlines, and consumers drowning in debt. It's about governments dependent on holiday tax revenues, corporations dependent on queue for sales, and entire economies dependent on continued consumption. The Santa Claus myth isn't about a man in a red suit delivering presents. It's about an unwritten contract that says Christmas requires buying, that love is demonstrated through spending, that tradition demands consumption, and we all participate, knowingly or not, willingly or not, because the alternative opting out feels impossible, un-American, unfestive, selfish. So we perpetuate the cycle. Another year, another holiday season, another surge in spending. But now you know. You understand the machinery. You see the systems, the incentives, the costs. What you do with that knowledge is up to you. Maybe you participate fully, embracing the tradition and accepting the costs. Maybe you modify your approach, consuming more consciously. Maybe you opt out entirely, finding different ways to celebrate. There's no right answer, but there is awareness. And awareness is the first step toward choice. This Christmas, when you're shopping, shipping, wrapping, and spending, remember, you're not just buying gifts. You're participating in a multi-trillion-dollar global economic system. You're voting with your wallet for the kind of world you want to live in. The Santa Claus myth is real, but you don't have to believe in it. The choice, as always, is yours.